Welcome, everyone, to today's virtual Move the Needle, honoring our veterans who have served for Americans' freedom. So my name is Sylvie Légère. I am the co-founder and chair of the board of the Policy Circle. And just as a reminder, the Policy Circle's mission is to inform and equip women to be impactful civic leaders who unleash the potential of human creativity in our communities. I would like to start with really honoring today two veterans who touched my life. First, my cousin, who served 3 times in the Middle East and overcame some challenges when he transitioned out of the military into civilian life, and today is leading a successful career in security technologies in Austin, Texas. I would also like to honor another veteran, is Tyler Densford, who I met through Soldier Strong, and Tyler became paraplegic after falling off an helicopter during training, and he received a exoskeleton suit from Soldier Strong and was able to throw a first pitch at Wrigley. And here's a short video.
So I'm paralyzed from the chest down and no leg function. To come to terms with maybe not ever walking again and to have that changed by the charity and people that really want to support veterans, it's unbelievable. The suit allows me to stand up, walk, be eye to eye with people while talking, and it improves my quality of life as well as health.
While serving as an airman in the U.S. National Guard, he sustained a training exercise injury which left him paralyzed from the chest down. At one point, he was unsure whether he would ever stand or walk again. Thanks to an extremely generous donation from Sylvie and Todd Ricketts, the national nonprofit organization Soldier Strong could give access to a state-of-the-art rehabilitation technology known as the Indigo Exoskeleton Suit, or the Soldier Suit. We have the pleasure to welcome U.S. National Guard Senior Airman Tyler Densford.
Every time I see this video, I have tears in my eyes. He worked really hard to train to do this, but I want to say every year there's approximately 200,000 men and women that leave the U.S. military service and return to civilian life, and they become students, employees, entrepreneurs, and there's an estimated 18 million Americans, and that's about 7% of our population who are veterans of the U.S. military. So I invite everyone to review and convene people in your network around the brief that the Policy Circle published on veterans. By hosting a conversation, you'll find focus, you'll find allies, you'll determine perhaps a course of action and impact in your community. So I'd like to also, before we start, just remind everyone that the Department of Veterans provide really key benefits and services to veterans that range from healthcare to education, homeownership, loans. And as you can see in the slides, the budget in 2022 is $270 billion. And they really oversee a lot when it comes to veterans. The department maintains a site, and I think we'll have this in the chat, of all of the local service providers. And at the state level, they transfer fund to programs there. And there's a National Association of State Directors of Veteran Affairs, and that was formed in World War II to help veterans integrate the federal entitlements that's available to them and the state-specific benefits. So it's the country's largest, second largest service provider to veterans, and it also maintains a whole compilation of the state-specific resources for veterans. There's a big issue out there, is that the VA has been spent the last 6 years on the Government Accountability Office high risk list. And to quote them, it still lacks a clear and comprehensive roadmap to address the VA healthcare concerns. And there's no real meaningful progress to improving the effectiveness of its operations. So to supplement what the VA is doing, there's around 45,000 nonprofit organizations that serve veterans. So our conversation today would help us understand first the issues that veterans face when they're transitioning to civilian life, and then also some really innovative citizen-led solutions that assist veterans in that transition. So to join me, we'll have three panelists today: Martha Laughman, Lindsay Walls, and Chris Meek. So first, we're going to start with Chris Meek. Welcome, Chris Meek. Thank you so much for being here. Chris has served as the chairman of the board of Soldier Strong, and Soldier Strong, as we saw, provides some really revolutionary technology to veterans, and we'll hear more about that. And Chris just came out with a book that's called Next Step Forward, and I really invite you to go on my web podcast, Trust Your Voice. I have my latest interview. My latest episode is with Chris Meek, and you'll hear much more about his story and the story of Soldier Strong's there. But Chris, my first question to you is that I read in the brief that 25% of all veterans have an injury, a disease, or a disability that they got during active duty, or was caused or aggravated by active duty. So as we saw in the video, Soldier Strong provided an exoskeleton to Tyler. What is the need that Soldier Strong is filling for veterans today?
Sure. Thanks for having us here today. We really started as
Oh, Chris, I think we're having a bit of an audio problem. Maybe you can come closer or transfer to your AirPods.
How about now?
We're still having your sounding far.
Is this any better?
It's a little better.
I'm sorry, I reset my AirPods earlier. I apologize. How about this one?
Okay, I think keep going. I think start and then we can.
How about now? I'm sorry. Now? How about now? Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I do something next best?
Okay, let's go ahead, Chris, if you.
I got you. I think I got you now. Can you hear me, Sylvie?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. I reset my AirPods this morning. It's the joy of working from home and COVID. So the Strong started as a real grassroots organization, initially doing care packages, and then in 2013 transitioned to medical devices. And as you mentioned, our signature device is the exoskeleton, which enables a paralyzed individual to stand and walk again. And after we started funding and donating those to spinal cord injury units within the VA system, we learned that of the 45,000 veteran nonprofits, nobody was really focused on medical devices. And so we started looking to see what else was out there. Today we fund about half a dozen different medical devices, including a prosthetic arm, which is the only one with a full range of motion from shoulder to fingertips, prosthetic leg, which has propulsion in the ankle to reduce the hobble, an iBot, which is a wheelchair which goes up onto two wheels, so the individual can be eye level, forward again, as opposed to being a four-wheel wheelchair. And then lastly is BrakeMind, which is virtual reality software, which helps veterans with post-traumatic stress.
So, this is so you're providing this new technology, and let's talk a little bit more about the software on PTSD. So the brief also highlights that mental health, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder are the most publicized mental health challenges that military veterans are facing. Actually, there's an estimated 14 to 16% of service members who were deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq that have PTSD or depressions and all kinds of issues, right? It includes suicide, substance abuse, etc. So tell us a little bit more about that very innovative approach to treating PTSD, especially for the military.
Sure. And unfortunately, today we still have 2022 veterans commit suicide today on an annual basis. That's like the population of the town of Moab, Utah. And so we think that we're losing a town of veterans every year, and it's just catastrophic. The technology, as mentioned, is called BraveMind, and this was developed at the University of Southern California's Institute for Creative Technologies. And with the post 9/11 generation being the music gaming generation, this helps to reduce the stigma in terms of the veterans seeking mental health treatment. And it's a system called immersive therapy. So what that does is it puts the veteran back into that specific situation, that's their trigger point, and allows you to slowly and safely walk and talk through how you're feeling, what you experienced that day or that night, help you go through that situation again and reduce those fear and that trauma. And it's been clinically proven to reduce the number of treatments needed by 50%. And this technology has 14 different worlds or scenarios. It could be you in a Humvee driving down a road, it could be you in a forward operating base, you in a helicopter walking through an Iraqi village. And it puts you back at that moment in time. You're in a base shaker, so there's a bunch of subwoofers underneath. So if an IED goes off or a helicopter goes overhead, it's very lifelike. You can change the time of day it is, whether it's windy. And so it puts that person back into that moment in time as they talk through the clinical therapies.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I think you're making it also this technology and to available for also for teens, right? There's like a plan to also deploy it beyond just the military, which is so often technologies that are being developed for the military end up in civilian life. So, my last question to you, what is your vision? I know in your book you detail that you have a vision for this transfer of technology from the military to the veterans, because I think one thing I learned from you is this idea that how we treat our veterans is really a reflection of the power of our military. Can we be the first military power in the world with the way that we are treating our veterans today? And we need to be able to hold to that standard. So tell us about your vision.
Sure. There's a government agency called DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And what they do is their job is to think of the battlefield 30 years in the future, but then build it today. And so they've been responsible for creating things like internet, GPS, and things that have transferred from military to civilian use. And 556 medical devices that we find are byproducts from DARPA. And so once DARPA develops something to military specs, that's it. They're done with the project. They can't transfer to commercialize it or any other agency. And so, Sylvia, as you and I have talked, my concept here is to create a BARPA. So instead of defense, be focused on veterans, helping that tech transfer from the military to the veteran space. And my thought process is these men and women were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. And it's our job and responsibility to take care of them once they've left the military, whether they're injured or not. And so, giving our warriors and soldiers the best technology on the battlefield, we certainly owe that to them back here at home.
Yeah, I think thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to remind to our listeners that the Department of Veterans Affairs is governed or has an oversight by the Senate and the House committees on Veterans Affairs, and this could be a really great topic of conversation with your representative, especially if they are members of that committee. So I invite you to read Chris' book and to really follow the progress that he's doing there. So thank you, Chris. Thank you so much, Chris. I would like to now welcome Martha Laughman. She is the co-founder and executive director of Gold Star Gamers, and she has worked extensively in workforce development for veterans. Martha, so great to have you here. Thank you for taking the time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So the policy circle brief also highlights that employment is really a challenge for transitioning veterans. So share with us, what are the greatest challenge that you have seen that veterans are facing as they transition and begin to look for work outside of their military careers?
Yeah. If it's okay, could I share a little story about how I got into this and why it means so much to me?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so my husband, he was in Delta Force and he was severely injured in a helicopter accident. So he lost one leg, the other one was paralyzed. He had a severe head injury. And we fought for about 7 years to get him re-employed. And to be honest, that was the number one thing that meant so much to him, more so than, walking ever again, which he did. Thank you to an experimental surgery he had on his nerves. But the number one thing he wanted to do was to get a job. And he did. He got a job. And 6 months later, he got a brain tumor and was unemployed again. So he looked at me and he was like, I can't do this. You have to help me find a job. And so I made it my job to help him find a job. And I've been doing this ever since for the past 10 years, creating jobs and career opportunities for veterans and our wounded warriors. But to take someone who has a graduate degree and at the top of his career and then really take their employment away from him, it was very crushing to him. His identity was, it was very, very difficult. It's the most difficult thing that he went through. And I think you alluded to this earlier too, as well. So I wanted to touch on it. Really, both recruitment and retention for our military is very dependent on how we treat our service members. And a big part of that is employment. And so to me, I don't think it's a leap to say this is a national security issue. If we want to have a well-trained and robust and military that's ready to serve and protect our country, we really need to be concerned about employment opportunities when military transitions out and military spouses while they're active duty. Not sure if I answered your question, but that was my soapbox.
No. Thank you so much for sharing. No, and you bring up that it's a really great perspective. If we want people to join and be part of the military, we have to think also begin with the end in mind and say, well, where does that lead me in terms of my life? So, what are there are many efforts by various U.S. government agencies that focus on driving the success of militaries once they leave, and one is called a transition assistance program. And there's also a veteran readiness and employment. And they focus a lot on education and not necessarily into employment. So it'd be great if you talk to us about the success and maybe the shortcomings of these programs, and also what employers can do to really better understand the unique skill sets and drive opportunities for veterans in the workforce.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, I think you were mentioning TAPS, right? The Transitions Assistance Program. So everyone in the military, when they transition out, they go through a program to help them like write their resume and look for jobs and understand what opportunities are out there. So everyone goes through that program. The problem is during this time of transition, a lot of service members are working double duty, right? They're working on their transition and taking care of their families and trying to do that. At the same time, they're also working, their day job in the military and out processing. So even though that's a great program, I think with really good intention, it doesn't necessarily help as much as it could, or maybe they're not ready for it. And so there's a lot of public-private partnerships out there and a lot of other job programs that are helping to create bridges or pathways from active duty into transition. One of them is our Skill Bridge program. And so the Skill Bridge program, which came out of the VOW Act of 2011, really Congress identified that there is a problem with retention and recruitment. And part of that problem had to do with post-transition employment. And so they came up with the DoD Skill Bridge program. In the Army, we call it CSP, Career Service Program. And that means during your last 80 days before you transition out of the military, you can work for an employer partner. You don't get paid, you get your normal DoD pay, your active duty pay. And so you get to work for free for a potential employer. And it's kind of like a try it before you buy it model. So it's great. Amazon has this program. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has a program. There's CarMax. There's lots and lots of Skill Bridge programs out there. if anyone is interested in looking into a SkillBridge program, you can go to SkillBridge, I think .mil, and there is a finder there, a SkillBridge program finder, and you can find out like what programs are in your area and what the different possibilities are. The other program that's really popular that's popping up right now is called a RAP, a Registered Apprenticeship Program. And for that one, you can go to apprenticeship.gov and you can look at the apprenticeship finder. And so you can look by your state, or you can look for programs that are virtual and online. An apprenticeship program is really unique. They last at a minimum 1 year. And while you're doing an apprenticeship, you're going to have like 2 different phases. You're going to have the learning phase, and then you're going to have the OJT phase. During it, you get paid the entire time scalable wages, but you can also use your GI Bill as well. And so you get paid at an E5 with dependence rate while you're in an apprenticeship. And so apprenticeships, as you learn more, they give you an increase in pay. And so during that time, you can supplement the wages if you choose to use your GI Bill in that way. So that's another great pathway for service members that are transitioning out. And the third way that I think that probably a lot of people already know about is LinkedIn is insane for transitioning service members. So the best thing to do is start your LinkedIn profile early. Try to connect with as many veterans as you can. And every big company out there has a military recruitment team, has a veteran lead, and we're such a tight community, and they're all willing to spend time with you and talk to you. And so there's just so much collaboration on LinkedIn for veterans.
Oh, that's so great. And I think it's about being on the employer side, or if you have a small enterprise, it's to be intentional at really recruiting and wanting to recruit veterans. So thank you for sharing, and also for people who are veterans, it's great to always use LinkedIn as a way to connect, because I'm sure it's one of the biggest challenge is really the network, and having a real the network outside of the military to get jobs. And I'm sure that's what you do, is really help develop that network.
It's
So
one of our biggest challenges for sure. I mean, our military is so focused on their current job and what they're doing. They don't have that civilian network built in. And we all know that's how we get jobs, is through who you know. And I wish everyone that's transitioning would know it's easier than you think to meet people. I don't want to undermine
that's right.
the process of transitioning,
That's
but
right. Well, this is where actually, for our listeners, hosting a conversation around veterans, inviting some veterans, and inviting business leaders or people in your community, anyone really, to help people develop their network. A policy circle conversation is a great way to do that, to be a connector. And that's what we all can do. So thank you, Martha. Thank you for being here and sharing your story and the amazing work that you are doing. And I invite everyone, we didn't talk about it, but I invite everyone to also look at Gold Gamers, which is a gaming community for children who suffer from mental health issues and depression following the loss of a loved one in the military. So thank you, Martha. And I would like to now welcome Lindsay Waltz from Dog Tag.
Hi,
Lindsay,
thank
thank you so
you.
much for being here. Lindsay, you are with the Dog Tag Fellowship Program, and it provides a bridge from military service to civilian world, and I think it acts as a catalyst for finding direction and moving forward. So thank you for being here. I know that, and I learned this in the brief, the government spends about $10 billion a year under the GI Bill to support academic pursuits for veterans and provide funds for college education, job training. Education is a really big challenge, and retraining. Tell us what is so unique about Dog Tag Fellowship Program.
Absolutely. Dog Tag is doing something no one else is truly doing. It is a 5-month fellowship program for veterans, military spouses, and caregivers. And what happens is our veterans come through a robust interview process, and they come in with an entrepreneurial idea. And the whole point of this 5-month fellowship that meets Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., is that we really want to help launch that entrepreneurial idea into actual fruition. And so What makes Dog Tag unique is that this is at zero cost to those veterans, military spouses, and caregivers. Not only do we cover the cost of the partnerships through Loyola and Georgetown, but we also cover all the other expenses, including a monthly stipend. This is an in-depth, hands-on, very robust, holistic program, and we want to make sure that the veterans, caregivers, and military spouses are truly getting everything out of it. We take a holistic approach. We start out with wellness, mental health. They may start their day with yoga, reflection, and then they also go into the education and hands-on learning with our learning lab partners. And at the end of this, it all comes to this giant capstone project where they get to present their entrepreneurial idea to staff, their fellows, and a few select partners in the corporate and nonprofit world. And they get live feedback on how well did they sell their pitch idea, their business idea, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit business.
And they get a certificate in business, right, in entrepreneurship from, and you operate this, I think, at Georgetown University and Loyola University here in Chicago.
Yes, we just launched our first cohorts in Chicago in January and then July of this year. So we are just now entering or ending our first pilot year of Chicago. Being from Chicago, I was really proud to join the Dog Tech team and launch that alongside. And our second cohort graduates next week.
Oh, that's exciting. So, you mentioned that it consists of different 5 integrated program areas, and one of them is community engagement and learning labs. So how have you engaged local community organization, businesses, schools, perhaps citizens in this initiative?
That's a great question. We have over 100 partners and growing and always willing to bring on some more. We range from partners such as Boeing to small businesses to other nonprofits, foundations, you name it. And these partners participate in a variety of initiatives with our fellows, from resume building to mock interview day to pitch your purpose, where you get to pitch your business idea live to corporate partners and get, again, live feedback. We also have them participate in our capstone review. Again, once again providing feedback to those fellows. But it's so much more. Our partners also can help and assist with recruitment for the Dog Tag Fellowship. But we also have become lately a little bit of a pipeline for those corporate partners wanting to hire veteran employees, caregivers, and military spouses. So we're definitely a customized partner relationship builder, and it's really about what's beneficial both to Dog Tag and to that partner. No 2 partners are the same, which is awesome, and each are unique. But yeah, the best thing about these partnerships is some of them have become some of our most proud and most reliable volunteers. We always have some major projects that come up in the bakery in Georgetown, and we're always looking for those amazing volunteer opportunities. So it's a mutually beneficial and ever-growing partnership list, and we continue to hope to expand that.
Well, that's great. I mean, it leads me to kind of my next question. Well, thank you for, sharing this really exciting program that's experiential. It's not just academic, and it's also really interactive with the local community and allows people to build relationships. So I'd love to welcome everybody back to ask kind of a final lightning round question before we open it up to audience members. So the Policy Circle really drives local action and impact. So I'd love for each of you to share what can our Move the Needle viewers to do in their state or in their local communities that can help drive opportunities for veterans and their families. Chris, I'd love to start with you. Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, Chris is muted. Well, Martha, why don't we start with you then?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a business, I would reach out to your local one-stop Department of Labor. They have someone there that can help you get involved with the transition program on the military base, set up special recruitment, hiring fairs for veterans, or if you're interested, start your own apprenticeship program.
Great. Lindsay, you mentioned a little bit about volunteering in as part of Dog Tag. You're looking for volunteers. Are those opportunities available on the website? And your program are in person in Georgetown and in Chicago, right?
Well, due to COVID, we're actually considered virtual right now. We did hybrid in-person programming this fall and brought all Chicago fellows into Georgetown for a week of in-person programming, which went phenomenally. And so we're still looking at what's best. We survey our fellows and we adapt accordingly. So currently we are virtual and are looking to introduce in-person programming. The volunteer opportunities are in DC. We do have only one bakery storefront. So we have one brick and mortar, and that is in DC. And that is where majority of our volunteer opportunities are. But as we look to grow and expand our Chicago market, you never know what might arise. And our volunteer opportunities are available on our website.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'd like to also point out that there are about 440 boards, in each of the states. So at your state level, it would be good to look at what are the commissions or boards that are governor appointed, and in which you could be part of that impacts veterans. I invite everyone to do that. Chris, you are back. Do you have some last words for our listeners about how they can get involved with Soldier Strong? Can we hear you? No. Well, we'll say goodbye then, Chris, unless you find that's a bummer, because I can answer some questions. I know Chris very well, so I can answer some questions. So I'd love to, Mandy, I would love to turn it to the audience for some questions. We'll put some in the, we already have some here. So what are the communities, what ways that the communities can help veterans translate their unique skills into something that's really transferable to other industries? Perhaps, Martha, you can help answer that question.
I'm so sorry. What are the skills that can help veterans transition?
Yeah, what are some of the ways that they can translate their unique skills to something that's...
if you just Google veteran translator or skilled translator, there are lots of different sites out there that'll help veterans translate their skills and from their military language into civilian language. And I think that that's really, really important to make sure that whoever is reading your resume from a civilian perspective and eyes really understands what you're bringing to the table, because there's always going to be that gap, right? From what you did in the military and the language that's used in the military to the civilian world is a little bit different. So it's definitely very relatable, extremely valuable, but we got to translate that language.
Okay, thank you. So the next question that we have is, how can we combat retention issues once veterans find employment opportunities? And maybe, Lindsay, you have some ideas, because I know you provide also training, so you kind of know firsthand some of the challenges, the issues that people are facing.
Yeah, absolutely. As part of our fellowship program, our fellows not only get one-to-one counseling and training, but we also have a robust mental health program partnership with WWP. But one of the things that we really try to focus on is self-advocacy as transitioning veterans go into the workplace, and then resiliency. We learned through the hard way as we were building our bakery in our classroom when we did have in-person instruction that our lights were too bright, and all of our desks had doors facing to the students' backs. So there are things that veterans may not feel empowered enough to speak about to an employer, whether it is, I need to wear sunglasses, or I can't have my back facing a door. I have these skills, but maybe they're called something else, and I don't know how to speak up. And so we do a lot of that training on how to be self-advocating and resilient in the workplace. And we also work with our corporate partners for that mock interview, resume building, and again, that one-on-one counseling and training that allows them to feel a little bit more empowered as they do make that transition.
Great. Thank you so much. The other question that we have are, what are the ways that businesses can better prepare to incorporate veterans and service members into their workforce? I guess we talked a little bit about that. But is there something that also they could do with their employees in terms of training employees, to colleagues, peer, to be ready also to perhaps work and with veterans? Martha, perhaps you have some suggestions?
Yeah, I think we like to suggest that if you have a veterans hiring program, a veterans hiring initiative, that you also provide mentorship. So that peer-to-peer mentorship that you're talking about is really important. So creating a veterans group at your place of employment is very, very powerful and helpful.
So, well, thank you. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Martha and Lindsay and Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really informative and inspiring. And I think it really drove us to interact more with the veteran community. So, thank you again for joining us. So, I want to, in closing, really, I want to thank you, all veterans who have served, and thank you for joining us today for this program. And thank you to our speakers for sharing their valuable insights. And before we wrap our conversation, well, please take a moment to learn more about how you can take action today. As I've said before, host a conversation using our veteran briefs. We put the link in the chat. Identify local veteran organizations or the ones that we mentioned today. We're also dropping the links in the chat, and see how you can support opportunities for veterans in your community. So we hope you enjoyed the conversation today. And if you found this programming compelling, I hope you'll consider joining the Policy Circle community. We're a growing network of curious, thoughtful women who are stepping up in our communities to have a positive impact. So I invite you to visit thepolicycircle.org, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day, a great weekend, and once again, happy Veterans Day. Thank you.